Welcome to the Bastrop podcast. Real people, real stories, all from right here in Bastrop, Texas. I'm your host, Matt Walker, a local business owner, realtor, and entrepreneur with Wisdom House Realty Group and Bastrop Drone and Media Company. We sit down with the locals shaping our community, from the mayor's office to Main Street shops, and bring you the voices behind the town we call home. I am here with John Eason. John, thank you so much for
Thank you for having me, Matt. I appreciate this.
Absolutely. Let's dive in. Can you introduce yourself and share a bit about your background in Bastrop?
So I'm John Eason, and in 1988, I moved to Bastrop, Texas. Bastrop was a lot smaller community back then. Okay, I mean, it was like nothing was on where Walmart is today. There was nothing over there, and I moved here to help just serve in the community. And so I was only really expected to be here just for a few years. I came single, but since I moved here, I've of course got married, raised my 5 kids here, and we all still live here 37 years later. And since then, I've just served in a lot of different capacities in the community and different nonprofits, and just kind of become part of the community overall.
That's awesome. Awesome to hear, especially, starting at that, we'll just see what happens, and then becoming, a kind of key community member.
Yeah, I moved, there was an area on the other side of the town there, it was called LBA. Weirdly enough, when I came down to visit my brother just for one day, a massive ice storm came right behind me, just like a northern came in and closed Highway 35 off, which is our major corridor to Dallas, because that's where I came from. Closed it off for an entire week. I was stuck down here. I was only planning on being here one day. Was stuck down here for a week. But in that week is when I discovered that, hey, you know what? This would be a really cool place to come and move to and serve. A person had told me about a couple of girls in that community that were seemingly neglected. It kind of touched my heart. And I thought, you know what? I was in Dallas and I thought, man, this seems a lot more authentic to me. So at 23, man, I just packed up my car and came on in.
Nice. I'd love to hear it. What made you decide to run for the BISD school board?
What's kept me in is not what got me in. Okay. Because, things evolve. The more you get, the more you look into things. So there were a couple of what I call those first domino drops. Well, one is that I have 3 daughters that work for BISD. And so, because I want them to have a good career and I hear the challenges that they're facing, it raised concerns for me. I'd like them, teaching used to be a great career. People would really enjoy it. But now, a lot of people are dropping out of that career just because of the challenges and the burdens that are placed on teachers. That was one of them. The other one was I actually attended a school board meeting, and it wasn't because what our idea got voted down. That was not what bothered me. What bothered me was that it was it was a large attendance. Like people standing all the way around the room, and they just dismissed it like it was a non-issue. And here is something that was so important in our community. It had the judge, the sheriff, business leaders, some pastors were all making this case. And it was almost as though they just said, too bad. And I walked away, honestly, very frustrated. I'm thinking, these guys and gals are elected officials. We're their constituents. And I got to be honest with you, it was just like, I made this statement, may not have been the right statement. I said, someone needs to be fired. That's exactly when I walked out of that room. Someone's got to get fired. So then, a few months later, it was just stirring in me. So when it was come time to run, I said, I'm in.
That makes a lot of sense. What do you love most about Bastrop today?
There are certain things I just love. Okay. I like a river. I love water. I love the river. I think that was one of the first things that really drew me to it. And we got a real beautiful lake as well. I'm a water person. It was a needy area that drew me here initially. Like, hey, you could make a difference. These people need someone here to help support them and encourage them. But today, okay, it's a little bit different. It's a totally different Bastrop when I got here. I'd read a stat. I can't tell you what it was, but a lot of people go through an entire day and never talk to anyone they know. Every encounter is a stranger. Like if I was living in Austin or something, or San Antonio, bigger city. That's what I like about Bastrop. No matter really what business I walk into, I know someone. I may not can always recall their name, but it's someone that I have done business with, that I don't feel like I'm living in a town of strangers. I feel like I'm in a town that I'm supported relationally, maybe because I've been here so long, but I also like the idea that it's a growing town. I don't want to be in a town that's stagnant and I only have the 10 people I know. I love the new people that I have the opportunity to meet as well. So it kind of keeps it fresh, personal and fresh.
And I definitely have that kind of same feeling of, it's got this historic, almost kind of the downtown area with a lot of still that old school vibes, that old, like that small town-esque vibes, while the outside is expanding. And so it's been very cool to watch how those two interact. And I think they can live harmoniously. And I
So
think
far, so good.
it's doing pretty good with it.
Yeah, well, and they put some real restrictions on the downtown, which is good because I appreciate that too. And when I first came here, probably 75% of the downtown buildings were vacant and had for sale signs. So it's been a real blessing to see people like come in, put decent businesses in there. And I love also that kind of that rising music industry we've got going here too. Like we actually have a live music venue in Bastrop. So I dig the downtown area, and I'm digging what's going to be coming too, the other new restaurants and all of that. Hey, whatever keeps me out of Austin, I'm going to be happy.
I understand that. Yeah, it's gotten to be a hike to get out there.
Yes, it is.
We're getting just about everything we need out here. You've raised 5 kids here. What's something raising a family in BISD has taught you?
What I can do is say, just fall on the mercy of it's never too late to start doing things right. Things that I was involved in did not involve education. I was involved in the drug and alcohol program, housing people. I was the chairperson of the Salvation Army for a lot of years. And so my lane really wasn't education. But my kids seemed to be doing okay. They were active. They participated, whether it was in theater, whether it was in sports or dance. So they seemed to be engaging, and their grades were fine. They seemed to have good social connections. So believe it or not, I wasn't all that concerned. It's like, okay, things are going well here. But since then, now that I got grandkids in, and it's like now I'm seeing things that I hadn't seen before, right? The fact that all of my kids actually still live here in this town, and I get to see them all the time. And, I love that my kids did not move away. All their families are still here. And I'm just glad that they've chosen not to leave Bastrop, that Bastrop has offered some things to at least keep them here.
That's awesome to hear. For someone new to Bastrop with kids in the district, what would you want them to know about our schools?
Okay, so I got to be careful here a little bit, because when you point out things that need to change, sometimes people take it very personal, it's like a personal attack to them. Okay, so I don't ever want to take away from the fact that there are hardworking teachers, hardworking administrators working hard to educate our kids. So I would say the strongest element of the school district is the teachers. They got great teachers. My kids had great teachers. In fact, if I looked over the whole history of all their teachers, I'm not really for sure if there was one I ever had an issue with. I may have gone in and yelled at one or two just to act like I was a good dad, because my daughter, hey, they treated me wrong or something. I would have to say, look, sincere teachers and teachers that are committed to doing their job, it's not a teacher problem. See, that's the thing. It's not a teacher problem. It's an administrative problem that we face. So I'd have to say, hey, but here's what you do. Put your kids in the school district, but just be a participating parent. I mean, stay engaged and make sure your child's not falling through the cracks or something. But if I did it all over again, all of my kids would be back in BISD.
That's,
even though I have other choices.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't have choices. They had homeschooling choices, but now we got charter choices, private school choices. My kids would still be in BISD.
You've talked about wanting to restore the classroom. What does that mean to you practically?
So one of the things that people, just to set this up just for a second, school boards operate in a particular philosophy, what I call big picture things. Okay, like I don't know if it was the School of Athens. It's a picture of Plato and Aristotle, and Plato's pointing to the heavens, Aristotle's kind of pointing to the particulars around him. And so the idea is that really school boards are really about the big things, building new schools, budget, setting policies. Yes, I get it. But the problem is, if you don't understand what's happening in the particulars, it's hard to make good decisions in the universals. So when I say restore the classroom, what I'm saying is, look, this is the particular. The classroom is the hub of all learning. If you fell in the classroom, it doesn't matter if you got new buildings, great budgets, great whatever. The classroom is where kids either learn or they don't learn. So when I say restore the classroom, I'm actually saying, look, this is where we have to succeed and win. And what do we need to restore? Well, very simply, really quick, discipline. That discipline has to be brought back into our public schools. You can't ever say, hey, when I was a kid. But the fact of the matter is, my generation was probably the last generation that was under a stronger discipline in public education. And you remove the discipline and you remove that structure and that order, it's going to be very hard for a kid to learn. Yes. So I'm like, yeah, people say, hey, it's not your job to worry about the classroom. I'm saying I have to know what's happening in the classroom if I'm going to make the bigger decisions anyway. So to me, it's just a faulty philosophy.
No, that makes a ton of sense. What are you most hopeful for when it comes to the future of BISD?
Me getting elected. To not be elected is literally saying that we will have no real strong initiative to change. Because those that are serving in those positions are okay with the new normal, that a lot of kids can be left behind. As long as a few are making it, we'll be happy. So I'm going to be like, I want to basically see a generation of kids that be like, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to expect anything. I'm not going to be able to expect any greater improvements for my daughters because the district thinks they're already doing great work. My kids.
So let's say you do get elected for it. What are you hopeful for the future?
I'm sure there's great challenges that I'm totally unaware of. But I have done a lot of interviews. When I mean interviews, I'm talking about like what you're doing with me. Okay. I mean, all aspects of a district, from board members to administration to teachers to counselors. My schedule's been filled up. I want to make sure a few things are put back in place. One is just enforce the policies that are already there. Those policies were put there to help better educate our kids. They were. Someone already thought these things through already. I mean, they're stellar. But if you don't enforce them, and they were put there to help educate, then not to enforce them then takes away from education. So my first goal is just hold them all accountable. Hold the superintendent accountable, the deputy superintendent accountable, and say, look, maintain the policies. Maintain them. Or we're going to let the community know that you guys are completely just abdicating the policies that have been set in by previous boards. I'm sure it's been a previous board that did it. Maybe not this present board. In the student handbook.
We got an early election coming up.
Yes. A lot of people don't vote in this election. It's not a national election. A lot of people aren't there, but I'm going to tell you why. I think number one is because if you live in a school district, you can only vote for the school board. In other words, you walk in, you're only going to check one box. You don't decide the mayor. You don't decide the city council. You're going to literally walk into this election and you got one box to check. That doesn't motivate people. The other reason I think people aren't as motivated, because I read a stat, it's really interesting, that 9 out of 10 parents think their kids are actually doing okay in school. Like they were at grade level and comfortably at grade level. But the true stat, BISD stat on their own website, only 1 out of 10 kids are. So you have a narrative a parental narrative of 9 out of 10 kids, like the kids are all doing okay, but you have the true narrative that only really 1 out of 10 are. I don't think that's why people aren't alarmed. I think if people really actually knew what was the state of our district, I think they would get alarmed, because I did. I went from frustration from that board meeting to anger. Like, you're affecting a lot of kids' lives here. I mean, thousands of kids. And now just purity alarm. Like, this has got to change. That's where I'm at. We really frustration to anger to alarm. And I think almost any parent, if they would follow this thing through, would think the same way.
So we're starting a new segment called Wisdom Wednesdays. So can I get 60 seconds of wisdom that you can share with our audience?
Yes. To go up, you got to give up. In other words, to go up, you have to make sacrifices. To stay up, you got to sacrifice even more. I think sometimes people are thinking that if I sacrifice at the beginning, I can kind of maybe, more like a gravy train on the other end. But no, to go up, you got to give up, to make sacrifices to succeed. And then once you're successful, you're going to have to sacrifice even more to stay up. And I think that takes a paradigm shift in a lot of people, because I think they're hoping that one day they won't have to sacrifice as much. I'm telling you, sacrifice is going to always be necessary to stay successful.
Wise words.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. So is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd like to touch on?
Well, I think one thing is the importance of voting in this election. Okay, because again, since it's not a high turnout, well, the upside of that is that your vote actually makes a bigger difference. I mean, if you're one of 100 million votes to put a president in, but you're only one of 1,000 to put a public official in, because I can tell you something, probably the school board vote trumps all other votes right now. I mean, hey, we need a good mayor, but that mayor is not going to affect your kids' education. We need a good city council. That affects the business community. What you need is a strong school board that affects this generation of kids and future generations. And I would say that's probably the most important vote right now. I have a Facebook page that it's called Vote John Eason School Board. And I also have a lot of my philosophy there as well. I mean, I try to make a post every day. It's not directly, about this, one thing. It's an overall philosophy of life, the way we will approach the school board and the needs of this community. So you can go there and take a look at that. You can also go to the website. It gives you a little bit more of a bio. Vote John Eason. It has a little bit longer bio of maybe the things that I've been involved in through my, being involved in other schools and, teaching at the high school level. I have some years actually in the educational world as well. And so you can find that on the website. And so I think out of both, you could probably get a feel of who I am and hopefully help encourage you to actually vote John Eason. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Awesome. Well, John, I appreciate it so much for you taking some time out to talk with us. And
thank you for having me. I'm very honored.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening to Bastrop Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, follow us on Instagram at wisdomhouse_TX and share it with a neighbor. We're here every week with the new conversations from people who make Bastrop feel like home. Got someone you think we should interview? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you.